Hello, lore heads, and welcome to The League, exploring the League of Legends lore from A to Z. My name is Rebecca.
And I'm John.
My name is Mark.
And today we get to talk about the Steel Shadow Camille, who was released December 7th, 2016. I forgot what month 12 was for a second there.
That's strange month.
There's 12 of these? Yeah.
Man, that means she was probably the last champion released before we left LA.
I guess so. I felt like we left before that. It was around that time. No, we were in... Yeah, you're right. It was around Christmas that we left, yeah.
It's like your graduating class.
Oh, that was your graduating class. Actually, you were still working at Riot for a while after we moved, but yeah. Yeah, Camille has on her page a bio and 2 short stories. One of them is called Tea with the Grey Lady, and the other is The Weakest Heart. And John has found some other things as well.
Yeah, she also has her own single issue comic called Severed Ties.
Yeah, I think that was how they teased her, actually, or announced her was with this comic.
Yeah, and I think that may have been the first one that we had something like that specifically, like an actual comic, if I'm remembering.
Yeah, I think so.
She's also mentioned in a few other people's bios, but those were the only things that are kind of specific to her.
Yeah, she's the letter C in Caitlyn's, right?
Maybe. Who knows?
Oh, God. Best mystery in all of League.
Or you're still bitter about that, huh?
Yeah, very.
So I guess we'll start with the bio, yes?
It's as good a place as any.
Okay. So
Always a good starting place.
Camille is part of the clan Pharos? Pharos? Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I think Pharos is right.
All right. Their family gained wealth through the Hex Crystals, kind of farming them. We talked a little bit about this in the Caitlyn episode. It was Camille's great aunt, I believe, who kind of discovered all this crap, and they don't seem to be aware that they're full of souls. I hope not, anyway. They don't mention this. This is a limited resource, though, so eventually they figured out a way to create synthetic hex crystals. They're a little bit weaker, but, they can make as many as they want, so seems a fair trade. However, manufacturing these seems to be contributing to the Zon Grey, a lot of people think, and the clan has to do some pretty seedy shit to keep making them. So,
But you do what you gotta do to make that green.
Yeah.
Or I guess those cogs.
That blue.
Tilt over.
Is that what their currency is?
I
didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I remember. Hold on. It's they mention it a bunch in the Progress Day story. I'm trying to remember what they are. It's golden. Gosh, what are they? Are they golden hexes and silver cogs and copper washers?
God,
I think.
that's some steampunk shit.
Yeah.
It's just it's just bronze, silver, gold, right?
That's funny. Yeah, it's still just bronze, silver, gold, but they're like, oh, we'll make it, funky.
Funky.
Paying here is fun.
It's quirky. It's a cog. Anyway, Camille, I haven't even talked about her yet. She's the eldest surviving child of the clan masters. She's pretty well educated and eventually is named the principal intelligencer, which they don't really specify what that is. It seemed like, I don't know, muscle?
Like Spy Master.
They do what's necessary to protect the family. That's and whatever falls under that massive umbrella, that's them.
Okay, I like that definition.
I read it as like a mix, very much a mix between Spy Master and Chief Assassin. Kind of seems to be what it means.
Okay, yeah. Cleaner.
Yeah.
Normally, this position is left to a younger sibling, but her only young sibling, Steven, is just describe him as having a weak constitution. He's just a sickly little boy, so he can't do it.
It's funny, too, because until they talked about him more, when they said weak constitution, I assumed they just meant, he can't kill people. He doesn't have the stomach for it. But then they actually describe him as oh, no. It's a whole physically weak constitution.
Oh, yeah. That would have been interesting.
That would have been more interesting.
Yeah, I agree, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, now I kind of want that story. And I was enjoying this, too. It's ruined forever. No.
Damn it.
Steven seems to be pretty jealous of the fact that Camille has taken this over and all the extra training she gets, but he keeps his mouth shut, thankfully. At the age of 25, Camille is attacked. So is her father. He ends up dying due to the injuries, and her mom quickly kind of follows. And Steven becomes the clan master and starts to double down on hex tech augmentations, trying to like make a name for himself as the clan master. He finds a man named Hakeem, who seems to be a promising young crystallographer, and makes him the lead artificer for the clan. Camille wants augmentations and has to meet with Hakeem in order to do all the prep work on what she wants done. They end up falling in love during all this prep work, and Hakeem's a little worried that replacing Camille's heart with an augmented heart, which is apparently one of the things they're going to do, he's worried that's going to take away her humanity, so he proposes to her, and Camille finds herself torn for the first time, kind of between her family and what she has to do. Steven finds out about this proposal, so the next time they meet, he plans to have someone attack him. So Camille sees her sickly little brother all beaten up and decides that she has to do what she's got to do for the family. Tells Hakeem to, I was going to say fuck off, but she was a little bit nicer than that.
Pump sump. As the Zonites would say.
Yeah.
What the fuck? She politely tells him no, she will not marry him, and demands that he still do the operation. So Hakeem cuts out her heart and then immediately resigns because he doesn't want to do this shit anymore. Over the years, Camille gets more done. It kind of describes her, hook shot and her weird sword legs that I can't picture ever. And the story then mentions, like, a kind of vague betrayal that Steven does, and then says Camille just kind of, I don't know, doesn't... how did they phrase it?
I think she just becomes aware of the old betrayal. So, like...
See, I thought it was that too, but then in the story, they mentioned that she had become aware of that years earlier, and actually, was grateful.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty much what we see happen in The Weakest Heart, that she kind of sees the depths of his betrayal, I guess
that
we would
one,
say.
gotcha.
It wasn't the whole,
Proceed.
faking his injury thing. The story gets vague here. We'll talk a little bit more about how shitty Steven is in another story. But he betrays her, and Camille's like, okay, fuck off, and appoints her favorite grandniece as the clan master. Steve is mysteriously gone now, and she still continues to run the family's public affairs, do some shady operations, and she likes tea. They mention that, too, at the end.
They mention that in just about all of her stories.
Oh,
in
right?
fact,
This bitch loves tea.
she loves her fucking tea. She mentions it in the comic, too.
And that's Camille.
Nicely summarized.
Thank you. That was like I feel like as a bio, it was the same length as everything else, but like a lot happened in it.
Yeah. And something that I noticed is that it seemed like the person who wrote this one did make an effort to actually start the bio with a hook. They paid attention to their first line.
It's true.
That's true.
Yeah. So how do we feel about it? I knew nothing about Camille, honestly. So I found this fairly interesting, actually. And I think I would normally find the addition of like a romance kind of sometimes cheapens or weakens the story, but I actually enjoyed the addition of it here. I kind of felt it a little bit.
I don't know. I'll be honest.
Mark's like, fuck love.
I've grappled with Camille since we started. Yeah. Since reading through this lore, I've read through all these pieces multiple times because I just don't know how I feel about Camille. I don't have a strong reaction one way or the other. I don't know why. I'm struggling. I'm gasping for air trying to explain why it is that she doesn't quite resonate with me, and I don't know why.
Is it about like her as a character or like the writing in her stories?
Well, I think it's her as a character because I didn't mind most of the writing. I have one complaint writing wise with the Weakest Heart, which we can talk about when we talk about that. But for the most part, I didn't mind any of it. There's this, I don't know. I think I think it's just me. That's all. I think it's just me.
I'll tell you what my problem is, and this is a purely personal thing, is that she's a very cool character who I would like to root for, but she's fighting for the side of the bourgeoisie, who I can't root for. I want to root against them, but I want to root for someone that has her position.
I don't even mind that. I think, I don't know. I think like I said, I had a lot of trouble putting this to words as to what it is about her that doesn't quite do it for me. I don't know, because I do agree she's pretty cool, especially like in general design. She's very unique looking. She fits into Runeterra real well. I feel like she matches the Piltover aesthetic, whereas sometimes champions, especially newer ones, I think can sometimes struggle with fitting League. And I think she does a really good job of, just slotting right in. I don't know, and it's not nothing to do with the bio. The bio is very straightforward, so I'm not worried about the bio. Maybe we can explore it more as we hit the other pieces, but I'm just throwing that out there right now, I guess.
So do we want to do Tea with the Gray Lady first or last?
Oh, I can do it real quick, I suppose. I do have it. So Tea with the Gray Lady. This is by Ariel Lawrence, who I think wrote pretty much all of the other things as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Which is neat. It's always neat to see when there's a consistent writer between pieces, and it feels very much like, okay, you're getting a nice consistency for a character. So I hope we see that more as we continue. This one I liked. I'll throw it out there as well.
Yeah.
So it's told from the perspective of a Zon, I think, Zonite thug, who we only get the name of Mr. Turek. Don't get a first name. Working for a Kim Baron of the name Grime. The Kim Barons have great names. I will add as well, like Grime. We'll hit another one later.
I feel like they have like Judge Dredd villain type.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great comparison. I think this might be, by the way, this Grime guy might have been the Kim Baron from Oriana's bio. He's not mentioned by name in there anymore, but when I went searching for this name on the Universe site, Oriana's bio was the only page that came up. So I feel like maybe he might have shown up at some point.
It's in the meta text somewhere.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, so it's from this guy's perspective, or not Grimes, this Mr. Turek guy's perspective, and he has been captured and tied up, and he's with another thug or his bodyguard, a guy called Gordon Ansel, and they are being essentially interrogated by Camille, who is preparing tea in some sort of flop house or abandoned place in Zon. And Ansel gives some lip. Camille is trying to find out some information about an explosion at the docks, some event that happened. So she's got these two to try and get information. Ansel gives lip and gets rip because she cuts his fucking head off, which was pretty fucking cool. I must say.
Yeah, there was a good line right afterwards too. I don't remember it though. But
is it about? I don't know. There were a number of them. Like I know Ansel always makes a bad situation worse, or about how he always had a big mouth, like, but it's always something like that.
Yeah, he never stopped talking, something like that, and his mouth is perpetually open, but finally silent, something like that, because his mouth is still open.
Yeah. So our POV, our narrator is near pissing himself. I think he says that it made him want to piss himself or something like that. And Camille
he wanted to like void his stomach or something.
Some shit. And Camille kind of, comes down and is like, we're going to have tea and you're going to tell me everything that you know. And he acquiesces, we assume. It's very short, very short.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, touching on that tea.
True.
I will say this is the first of 2 times that someone is surprised at her legs. Like, because in this one, he says that he says that she has unnaturally long legs, but it's not until the very end where she like steps out from behind the table that he sees like, oh shit, they're blades. And I don't know how you wouldn't see that. And there was another time in the Weakest Heart where some dude tried to like stab her in the leg because he apparently didn't notice that her legs were blades. Like, is she wearing pants all the time? And people just
really
don't realize that her legs are fucking blades.
I guess
she's got some good denim.
Yeah, right.
I'm just picturing Camille with denim. She'd have to get like Janko jeans to fit the. Please give me a Janko jeans Camille skin, like a nice 90s grunge riot.
Well, I guess
My
I'll just
Camille
say,
romance.
God damn. Come on.
That
now.
was after Janko jeans. How dare you?
To be fair, in the Weakest Heart, he tries to stab her in like the upper thigh, I assume.
Yeah,
so maybe
he didn't realize.
Yeah, that part he didn't think was
like,
metal.
oh shit, it goes all the way up.
All the way up. Those legs go all the way up.
Yeah, how far up do
Legs
they?
for days.
Legs. But yeah, I said it before, I liked this one. It's a nice spot of violence, effective at showcasing Camille as intimidating and very quick to inflict violence on people. A nice brutal beheading too, which I like.
Yeah, it was a really stark comparison to Caitlin, who we just had, and she was chasing someone kind of similar, story that they both have, but Caitlin, takes people alive. Camille instantly decapitates them if they're given her lip.
Yeah.
Sounds like a character I would write, as John would know. Yeah, it's pretty short. I liked it. It didn't really do much for me. I feel like the flavor stories rarely do, where I'm like, oh, that was kind of neato. It had some good lines, but I didn't feel more connected with Camille, I guess.
She loves her tea, though. I learned that more.
She does fucking love tea.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it serves its purpose in that it, like you said, it just gives you a quick showcase of talent and mastery is kind of what I think they best do.
What they were trying to do with Caitlin, but I think ultimately failed, which we decided.
See, so next up, we'll do the short comic that she has called Severed Ties. It's not one of the multi-issue ones like Ash, so it's pretty short. You can read it pretty quick. Basically, Camille has learned that there's a baron from Zon called Baron Marco Volkage, who is trying to make a play at becoming, having like more of a presence in Piltover, basically. He's like a pretty high-level thug in Zon, and he's wooing, essentially, the head of Clan Arvino, Lady Sophia. So Lady Sophia, her father recently passed away, and she inherited his fortune and the Clan Master title. But she has been basically like hidden away her entire life. Her dad kind of kept her hidden away at the Blue Spire, which is the fancy place where all the rich folk are. So she knows nothing of the world. She's just a naive person who is suddenly in a position of great power and wealth. So she falls for Baron Marco Volkage's, scheme. We're not sure if it's a scheme, actually. Camille's pretty sure it's a scheme. It judges out there. But Camille knows that if this happens, the Baron will have a lot of power, and it will kind of cause an upheaval in Piltover. She mentions a lot of times that Piltover is a very intricate and delicate machine, and if one cog is in the wrong place, then the whole machine falls apart. And Baron Marco Volkage is that wrong cog. So she takes it upon herself to take care of the issue. She goes down to Zon and basically attacks him and his entourage. One thing especially to note here is that one of the Baron's henchmen has a facial augmentation that makes it look like he has a giant metal handlebar mustache, and I loved it. So the thugs attack her. She deals with them pretty easily, and then as she's about to kill the Baron, Sophia kind of jumps in front of him and is like, "No, you can't." And she's like, "Oh my God, I thought this was like a business proposal, but like, God, you actually love him?" She's like, "Yeah, don't hurt him." So then she kills him. And he's like, and then is like, "Nah, you'll be fine. He would have let you down anyway." Now you've learned the most important lesson of Piltover. With great responsibility comes sacrifice.
Comes great power. So
that was she leaves Lady Sophia alive to kind of mourn. But yeah, that's that story.
Does consider killing her. I did enjoy that she considered killing her, and the reason she didn't is just because it would cause more chaos in Piltover. So that was the only reason that she didn't kill a fairly young. How old do we think Sophia is, by the way? Because she looks
teens for sure.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
maybe late teens.
Yeah, if that.
Camille's a bad bitch. I don't know. I like her. I'm kind of with you, John, that I really like Camille a lot. I'm not as interested in, like, her position, I guess. And I'm fine with, like, a morally gray character, which I think she kind of falls into, bordering on evil, which can be really interesting. But her rich-ass family, no. I'd like her to find a new purpose.
Yeah, if she was this exact same character, but, like, fighting for the little guy, oh, fucking love that.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
Like way cooler Batman.
I'm kind of fine with her being, I don't know, I will say this comic was super cool to look at. There are great whole pages with no text. I think this is probably my favorite comic we've read so far, because the other ones can kind of fall into being like encyclopedias of text where everyone's kind of talking about what's happening. In this one, there's a ton of silent moments where it just showcases some really neat action and what's happening. It's really cool looking. This one, I feel like we start to waffle a bit, speaking of motivations, where in the bio, what we get is that she's all about her house, right? She's all about Clan Pharos, and that's her driving motivation. And in here, it starts to kind of lean into more, well, it's not just House Pharos, it's all of Piltover. Whereas I feel like those two things should sometimes come at odds with each other. Like sometimes like chaos, order, it doesn't matter, whatever is best for the clan seems like what would line up more with what we got in the bio. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe she's just like very long, or like she has good God, what is the word I'm trying to think of here? Very good long-term vision. Like she's always thinking like an unbalance within Piltover could cause the collapse of like everything that we hold dear in our clan. So like protecting this is necessary to protect, it's the type of thing that our modern day politicians should also believe.
I think I would like a line like that then is what I would want, is something to help tie this to what I assume is her kind of driving, like I said, driving motivation, which is, the house above all, right? Including herself. So.
Yeah. So when she has the thought, this could be bad for Piltover, this could be bad for Piltover, which would be very bad for my house.
Yeah, something like that,
I get you.
Yeah,
no, that makes sense. She's very much like a mob boss, isn't she? Does anyone get that from Camille? Like, she's...
Yeah.
Okay, that's it? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, kind of with like the
like
bio,
a
especially.
behind-the-scenes one.
Yeah, I was going to say, with it saying that where she's at now, she kind of runs the whole clan, but just in a sort of, I want to say surreptitious way, I suppose. Like from behind the scenes, like you said.
She's like one of those ones that has someone who's like the face of the mob, and everyone's like, that's the mob boss, but really it's her.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think about her in that position, because she also does a lot of, I was going to say boots on the ground, knives on the ground type work. She does a lot of wet work, whereas I feel like somebody who's really running stuff would probably delegate a little. But I don't know, if you're the best,
Right.
If you got swords for legs under your Janko jeans,
What do we think there was did we catch any sort of anti-Zonite like sentiment here? Because she talks about the idea of Volkage, getting influence in Piltover.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She clearly does not does not respect anyone in Zon. Like I would rather die than see a Zonite with any amount of influence in Piltover.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the exact wording she used was. She's like, the idea of it is not obscene, but something of a similar connotation. It's like just something that offends her sensibilities.
Well, now I
to the
like
core.
her less.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can.
I don't know. There were a couple of lines. That one and when she's talking about Volkage to Sophia, and she says, "They always disappoint you in the end." Is that a bit of like sour grapes? Is that kind of y'all's reading of it? I don't know. Because Hakeem didn't disappoint her. He seemed like a stand-up guy. He took her heart out and everything.
Yeah.
He did what she wanted.
It was real cool.
He stood by his principles. He seemed like I say, he seemed like a stand-up fella, from what we know.
Men will always take your heart.
She should have said that. Just keeping up with the whole obtuse heart metaphor.
That would have been fucking hilarious if she's constantly delivering relationship advice in terms of...
Talking about tea, I did like her line as well when she was talking about Volkage trying to force his way in. She says, "You might as well pour a whole pot of tea into one cup." right? That's how he doesn't fit.
Yeah. Yeah. If you try to force your way in, you have to displace one of the other cogs. You might as well pour a whole cup of tea or a whole pot of tea into a single cup. And for the record, the word she used is vulgar. The very notion is vulgar and can't be tolerated.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bummer.
I don't know. I don't mind it. I wish that sentiment was more. Frankly, I wish if you're going to include things like that, it was more carried out across some of these other pieces, because I feel like we don't get a ton of that except here. But
it helps too that in this particular case, this guy was kind of garbage.
Yeah, it's weird.
If it was like a regular old Zonite who was trying to marry in, I'd probably feel worse.
Yeah, he's kind of a skis. I think that's true.
When are we going to get a Zonite champion? Because as of right now, it seems like Piltover is very shitty to Zon, and that Zon doesn't deserve it. But at the same time, whenever we see a Zonite, they're kind of a piece of crap.
I mean, Blitzcrank's a Zonite champion.
I get but
it's true.
Echo probably is the next one.
Yeah, Echo's probably our first one.
Oh, okay. Echo's awesome.
I was gonna say Jinx, but I don't know the alphabet. I'm not good at it. So.
One thing that I liked about this one too, and I don't know whether it was actually intentional or not, or whether it just kind of whether the panel just focused this or not, but I like when one of the Baron's thugs started charging up what seemed to be kind of like a magical like hex tech blast. It focused on Camille's eyes, and they're always blue, but it focused very specifically on her blue eyes there. And I kind of feel like it was a nod to her in-game kit, which they also do in the Awaken cinematic, where like her defenses change based on the type of damage she's taking.
Yeah, I think they did a good job kind of carrying through some of that in The Weakest Heart as well. You can definitely tell there were a lot of
They really did.
Yeah. And I always appreciate that.
Yeah, like they use her ult, like...
Yeah, you don't see the ult get used that often. Yeah, this one was pretty cool. I did like this one as well.
Yeah, the art's really neat. Do you have credits for...
The two that I saw are, and this is on the wiki, mind you, was Philip Vargas and Ariel Lawrence. So I would guess Mr. Vargas was maybe one of our artists.
The artist?
I don't know.
I would probably check it out.
I know, like...
he's another writer.
So oh, okay. Maybe it's just a writer. So.
It might be on the title page of it, honey.
Let me see.
I didn't see one. You can
there's no
check.
title page on this one. Okay, yeah. I think the other ones were a partnership with Marvel, which is probably why they had the more technical cover page thing. This one was...
It's true.
It might have just been strictly in-house.
That's a shame.
I really wish they'd put it on the universe page. There's so much lore they're not tying to the universe page.
Yeah.
And I do wish they had put an artist, because this comic is gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's so cool, and it's not even... Yeah, it's not even linked through Riot's League of Legends website. It's linked through their wiki, which isn't run by Riot. I don't understand why they're leaving out so much work that they are putting into the champions.
It's a good question, really, especially something like this. This thing is like this would sell somebody on Camille more than anything.
I agree. Yeah.
And yeah, beautiful comic. This is, like I said, it's my favorite one so far, and I think the one that I've liked the most aesthetically as well.
Yeah, it's now John's on the comics page of the universe, and it's not on there either.
Yeah, there's specifically a section for one shots on the comic page, and it's not here.
Oh no!
Like Riot, why are you putting so much effort into making these? Please,
Riot.
But anyway, this does lead directly into her next short story, which Mark is going to take us through.
It's a long one.
I'm going to say by short story, you mean long story.
Buckle in, everyone.
Buckle up, Homestuck. So this is The Weakest Heart. We've mentioned it a couple of times now. Again, by Ariel Lawrence, who's done all the writing. And immediately follows Severed Ties, has Camille meeting with her brother Stephen, discussing the aftermath of the actions in that comic. Camille has made a deal with Arvino's Intelligencer to kind of quell any sort of fallout, I guess. And I don't remember the guy's name, but he'll take care of Sophia. And at this point, we see that Stephen is aged. He is, I think, elderly. She mentions age spots going up his head, and he's also wheelchair bound. So again, he's very frail and very old. And and I guess we should, I don't know if we mentioned it before, but Camille is like 80 something at this point, probably. She's got a much longer lifespan than most people do.
Yeah, essentially hasn't even aged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all because of that heart. So Stephen, speaking of tea, is having some tea as well. I think it talks about him, has a slotted spoon and his sugar, etc. But as they're meeting, he informs her of some plans and they say chaplet a couple times. It's like prayer beads, essentially, that they found on one of... Yeah. I was like, it's a rosary? It's just prayer beads of some kind that they found on one of the Baron's men in the aftermath of the comic. And the plans appear to be ones drawn up by Hakim, and they appear to be schematics for the same heart that Camille has, the thing that keeps her essentially, I don't know, near immortal or just really, really, really youthful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Iron Manning it up.
Yep. Exactly. And Stephen wants her... Yeah. And Stephen wants her to go and uncover it very explicitly with the goal to, let's get the rest of the schematics and I'll get it, and then you and I, sister, we can lead Pharos and all of Valoran to the glorious future. Right? So she does. She goes out searching. She finds she's being tailed by a blonde woman named Aviette,
so
something like that.
There was a quote in that scene that seemed very almost out of character for Camille.
Oh, interesting.
When the brother was like, "Oh, if we get these augmentations, I can, have an elongated life too, and I can, we can rule together." And she specifically, I double checked too just to make sure it wasn't internal monologue, but she said out loud to her brother, "Perhaps it's time to let another one take on the responsibility of the clan."
Yeah.
Which seemed like something she may have always been thinking, but wouldn't have said to her brother who was in charge of the clan, to his face.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess... Well, I guess we can talk about it when we get to the end. It seems like you said, it's probably something she's kind of either maybe just subconsciously kind of felt, and, these things are starting to kind of come out of her as things go on. But...
Yeah, I wonder too if if for a long time he was really good for the clan, and now she's finally feeling, well, he's not the best thing for the family now. And as we know, the family as a whole comes first, not just an individual member of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Now he's old and clinging to something.
It's it's a little hard to tell because the things we've gotten about Stephen in the other pieces have all been very negative.
Yes.
So he just seems to be a detriment. But to be fair, Clan Pharos seems to have definitely... They've been going up and to the right.
Yeah.
So who knows, right? Anyway, so as I mentioned, Camille's out and about. She sees that she's being tailed by a blonde woman named Aviette, and Camille eventually confronts her, and it turns out Aviette has been hired on by Stephen to help her, and she delivers a note from him specifically that also... I don't know if the note explicitly says that, it's also to make sure that you do your job in case that it is Hakim.
In case you go ahead and catch the feels again.
Yeah, it's kind of what it sounded like. It really did say that, to make sure you're not gonna, I don't know, leave the family for him or something. Seems a little harsh, Stephen, but whatever.
Yeah, well, to be fair, she is insulted by it, which you rightly should be. Almost threatens to almost kill Aviette, but Aviette kind of, she doesn't, and Aviette tags along as they continue doing this job, and the prayer beads lead her to the first assemblage of the Glorious Evolved, which I think we mentioned. Did we mention them at all last episode a bit?
Yeah, we mentioned the Glorious Evolved a bit.
Okay.
So let's refresh the audience's memory in case they forgot what the Glorious Evolved are. No one here.
Yeah. The audience. No, it's pretty straightforward. They're kind of quasi followers of Victor, or they've kind of been inspired by Victor in this idea of replacing flesh with metal, right? Getting rid of the weakness of flesh with the strength of metal. So they augment themselves, and it seems to be sometimes out of necessity, but maybe sometimes out of their own volition. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm. Sacrifice and...
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
and they have
these ones in particular, I think, like, don't necessarily follow Victor as much as they follow kind of the idea that Victor put forward. They actually follow the Gray Lady.
Yeah, so I'm curious about the Gray Lady. We can talk about it in a minute. But before we get there, I guess she goes into the church. She meets with their, I guess, priest, their head chapel guy, a guy called Brother Xavier, and he informs her that the beads that she has were belonging to a Shuriman Apprentica who had showed up a couple weeks earlier. Which I guess we didn't mention it before, but Hakim is Shuriman, so
yeah,
even more, leading. And as he steps off to go do his sermon or whatever, Camille encounters a young girl who has had one of her arms removed to combat it talks about the blight, which I had not seen mention of before, and I tried to search around, and I found one other mention of it. It's general disease, I guess, that you get from being in Zon, because it's shitty down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really dark. It's like a little girl, and Camille estimates she's not going to live another year, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of a mirroring of Camille herself, where it's she's having to get rid of parts of her, and Camille kind of notes that whoever did the work on her, the physiker, I think was the phrase she used, didn't do a very good job, because he should have gotten rid of both arms instead of just one, because I guess the blight would still be spreading in the other. Kind of this whole idea of you need to cut out the sickness, no matter the pain that it causes you, right? Do what has to be done. But as she's having
foreshadowing,
yeah, it's a very clear mirroring. But I like this interaction. So as she's having this,
yeah, me too.
This interaction, she sees that Aviette is being accosted by some augmented thugs. So she steps out, and they have a little action sequence where Aviette and Camille make really quick work of these 5 guys. No fucking challenge whatsoever.
Yeah, and they do make a point of mentioning that the little girl is watching them from inside the church, which is likely the reason that these people actually survived the encounter instead of just being murdered.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point, actually. Because otherwise Camille probably would have just turned them into goo. And I guess before we go on, we should mention the Gray Lady, because we mentioned it before, but it seems to be the patron saint of the Glorious Evolved.
Yes, so it is the patron saint of the Glorious Evolved. They do refer to Camille as the Gray Lady in the story, like tea with the Gray Lady. I've got a theory. And I don't know if there's already proof disproving this or not, but whatever. So
John's hot takes.
I mean, my theory is that she is the Gray Lady, but she's also like so old at this point that because my guess is if she's the Gray Lady and everybody knows she's the Gray Lady, she wouldn't just be able to walk to the back of a congregation of people worshiping the Gray Lady without them being like, oh my God, it's the Gray Lady. But if enough time had passed, like, it's very easy to forget that, like, oh shit, that's you, isn't it? Like, I'm kind of reminded of the newer Star Wars movies where Rey finds out that, there's a Jedi, and she's like, what? No, Jedi are fake, even though the Jedi had just saved the universe, like, not that long ago, but, like, it's people forget things really quickly.
Yeah.
And if she's been alive for, like, generations, like, it's entirely possible that she's the Gray Lady, she knows she's the Gray Lady, but they don't realize that she's the Gray Lady.
We can set new Star Wars aside, because I don't like that personally. I think 80 years is one thing, but 20 years... I mean, they saved the motherfucking galaxy, like you said. It's a bit much. But that's not what we're talking about.
I guess it would also kind of depend on location, though. I mean, I don't want to get into a Star Wars argument, but if you're not in the middle of that, war, and you're hearing about it from a distance, it might seem like a myth. And again, for Camille, how often does she go down here,
Well, that's a good question.
I think it's fine if she hasn't.
In her bio, it says she likes taking long walks in the gray, so I feel like she does go down into Zon sometimes, which doesn't really line up with her having a really, what's the word? Kind of, she looks down on Zonites, but she does seem to like to go down there, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And she must look enough like the Gray Lady. I mean, the little girl just walked up to her and were like, are you the Gray Lady?
Yeah.
Like, she must look enough like her that the little girl recognized her. But noticeably, she does not respond to that question. She just continues a conversation with the girl as if she had not asked it.
Yeah. And think of in terms of a child and an adult probably wouldn't think like, oh, this woman I worship has just wandered in front of me, but a child might think that, so I think it fits.
Yeah. So I'm on the she's the real gray lady train.
No, I think you've actually got probably the right of it, that like you said, she's 80 years old, so across multiple generations, easily something that could become more myth than wherever it came from.
Like Brahms stories. Anyway, yeah.
So they eventually track down where this Apprentica is staying. They split up because I guess the handwriting and the ledger was like, oh, he's either on the third floor or the basement. So Camille will go take the third floor, and Aviette will go take the basement. Camille comes into the room and sees a young man with the same dark curls that Hakeem had, and who looks very similar, and she kind of calls out to him, and it's not Hakeem. It is his nephew. Do we ever get his actual name?
So I actually liked this a lot. We do not.
Yeah.
She literally, because this story is through her perspective.
Yeah.
She literally she never asks his name. She only refers to him as two names throughout the story. One is Hakeem's nephew, and two is the young man who looked too much like Hakeem. That's the only way she ever refers to him.
Yeah.
Wakes him up, kind of surprises him, and sees that amongst his schematics there is a drawing of her that Hakeem had actually drawn maybe not from memory, but just kind of drawn incidentally while they were doing their lab work together. It's not lewd. I don't know why I said it like that.
No.
It's actually kind of sweet. She does say
a nude photo of Camille.
He didn't
draw me like
her
one of your Zon girls.
Hakeem's just hanging out staring at this full bush nude of Camille.
No. I was gonna say it's quite sweet, because she says, there's a portrait of me, a woman in love, right?
So different. It's very heartbreaking.
Yeah, and but amongst them is also a bunch of schematics, I think, about for the heart, right? That's what the rest of the stuff is there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, she burns them, which is interesting, because she was supposed to be getting them for Steven, but decides instead to put an end to it. As she goes outside with the nephew, she is jumped by those same 5 dudes from earlier, and Aviette, under direct orders from Steven. And they have been ordered to collect her crystals, I guess. They say to make sure to keep the crystals intact, and they need the Apprentica, Nadiri, or Hakeem's nephew. I don't know if he has the same last name, but that's it. Now, that being said, Camille kills them all. No fucking problem. They don't really do a great job of threatening her.
I'm curious because we agreed that Camille only sacrificed or spared them before because a little girl was watching. So why did they make themselves known to Camille? Were they just that arrogant, thinking that she wasn't going to beat them twice?
So what they said, like I don't know whether they didn't realize, or whether I don't know how they knew that she wasn't going to kill him the first time around. But at least in the second encounter, they were just like, thanks for showing us what you got. Now we've got like an accurate gauge of your power level, like all anime like.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. As if she had shown them everything. She hadn't even ulted in their first fight.
My ultimate ability. But on top of that, they bind her arms as if like, oh yeah, that'll fucking stop
she
her.
has sword legs.
Because that's what she was using.
Maybe they didn't see him. She was wearing her fucking Jenko jeans.
That's true.
Oh, man.
I wish I could draw, because we have talked about so many different Camilles that I would like to see. Jenko Jeans Camille and Rose from Titanic Camille.
We should commission them. Oh, man. So let's see. She wrecks them. She does kind of quasi threatens Hakeem's nephew. I don't know if she's very explicit with it, but the general idea is, you need to come audition for Clan Pharaohs tomorrow, because this is like the day before Progress Day, or I'll have to fucking kill you. She doesn't say that outright, but that's like the implication, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I hope he understood my implication, because man, I'd hate to have to kill him.
Yeah.
But I will.
Yeah. and then she returns to Steven, having, Aviette, just like, by the way, during that interaction, had definitely just kind of been like, oh yeah, Steven definitely hired us and told us to kill you, so he definitely betrayed you, just so you know, FYI. She returns to Steven, and they bicker a bit, and she this is also where we had learned that she had uncovered his earlier betrayal years back, around when he had himself jumped. Turns out that she had known about it and was actually kind of okay and relieved by it, I think is the word she used. That it helped push me in the right direction, the ends and the means, and sensing that his heart is very weak, like the weakest heart perhaps, she just gives him a little jolt of hex tech energy, and that's it. And Steven is kaput.
Yeah, I like how he was like, as soon as she confronted him and like threw Aviette's whip down, he was like, all right, I'm super effed. Like, I'm not getting out of this one alive, so I'm going to do what I can to fuck with her head before I go. He brings up all sorts of shit, like how she failed the family, how she failed their dad and let their dad die, and throws all sorts of things back in her face, just trying to do as much damage as he can before the inevitable death jolt comes.
Yeah, I do like that line when she shows him the whip, and he kind of dodges around the obvious question, right? She's like, oh, his legs haven't worked in a while, but he's still a great dancer, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, I think. But yeah, so that is the weakest heart. Yeah. That's about where it ends.
I also like that the whole time he was essentially just the entire outburst, she was very calmly just kind of in her own head. Just, it seemed like viewing him as just like really pitying him, like not taking anything he said seriously, just like, aw, poor little thing. I'm gonna have to put this one down, aren't I?
It's interesting you say that, because that lines up with going back to the Tea with the Gray Lady, where the POV guy has that same sense when she's interacting with him after she's killed the other guy. It's like, he describes her as like a school teacher who's helping a student who's slow with their arithmetic, or it's like they're almost pitying,
Ooh, God, third skin I want.
Ooh, school teacher Camille. Fuck yeah.
Would her legs be like the God, not protractor. What's the, when you have to make circles and shit? What's that thing called?
like a compass?
No, the
compass.
I think it is. Oh, is it? Where you put the pencil in. There's a. Oh, it's called a compass. Oh.
Compass Camille.
It's been a while since I've taken a math class.
Same.
So, Mark, I'm curious what you didn't like about this story. I know you had some complaints about the writing, because I gotta say, I really liked this story.
So, writing-wise, my only actual complaint is really to do with the action sequences. And it's because we're dealing with someone who's got a very specific anatomy, and interacts with violence in a very unique way with Camille's legs. And I thought there were a lot of instances during the action sequences where I had like no idea how she was moving, how one leg was leading to the motion of the other leg. And I just feel like when a person moves, there's a natural momentum kind of carried through, and I didn't kind of get that at all. The rest of the stuff around that, I didn't have any complaints with, actually, except for maybe the like I mentioned the word obtuse metaphor for like her actual heart being replaced with a mechanical one, and that kind of causing her to be emotionless. That feels a little on the nose for me. But they've got to get these ideas across in a relatively short amount of time, so I will grant that one. But I really would have liked something that talked more through the movements that she was making as she was going from one strike to the next.
Especially because it was a first person, so we would be getting her movements from her point of view and not just as an outsider. So that's
the only thing. Like I said, it's just such a defining characteristic of her, of her, right, and how she fights, that to have something that really clearly established, at least in my mind, how she's moving. Something like, I would love it if they had really looked at like dancers, at ice skaters, also people with knives on their feet, And just kind of looking at how when you're moving, like I said, that momentum, when one leg swings, the other leg has a momentum that carries through, and kind of how they move from position to the next. That was the main thing. Honestly, I was really, in terms of it resonating with me, I really wanted to talk with y'all about all of Camille, because I had such a hard time grappling with her. I wanted to have someone talk through it with, and I think after having gone through all this, I'm liking her more. I don't know.
Interesting.
I just needed to get it out. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's very possible that she just might not click with you super much, and there might not be a reason for it. Sometimes characters just don't really click with me, and it's not personal.
The entire reason is that I just have a hard time imagining her walking around the city.
I really do too. Yeah,
that's fair. I did like at the early scene when she's in Steven's office, she mentions that her feet are carving up the carpet or whatever, or the rug that she's standing on. Like, yeah, that would happen.
That everywhere.
Right? Like, what does the castle floor look like at this point?
Everyone's just tripping in the pothole she created.
Can we
all
get
the time.
like cork tops to put on? Do you think that would help? But she's just walking on these little corks.
I did at least like that they made a point of mentioning that before she got the augmentation, she was a huge fan of the footed glaives, to at least justify why she would want to do something like that.
Fair.
Yeah, I did like the story. It felt refreshing after the long story we had to read for Caitlyn's. Do you remember that really bloated? Yeah, of course, it was just last week. But that story just felt too over bloated with information and not straightforward enough to me. And this one, I liked how the writing was very blunt. I like to write too, and I tend to be a very straightforward writer. I just kind of really appreciate that. Still painting a picture in a way, but just don't be pretentious about it, and use a bunch of words I have to keep fucking looking up, Close the thesaurus.
Yeah. I liked, so one quote actually that I liked when Camille was talking to Hakim's nephew was, she actually asked, did he ever wed? Because you know that this was something that was weighing on her mind a lot. And Hakim's nephew said, no, he never wed. In fact, he said that to love your work was more than we could ask for in life, which I kind of took to mean he's probably talking about Camille, because he kind of made her.
Yeah.
I will say I was a little disappointed. I actually think I would have preferred it if he had moved on. I think it would have been more impactful in a way. It's its own level of heartbreaking that he never, fell in love again. Whatever. To me, that's unrealistic. I'm going to be honest. It's been 80 years. Steve is her brother. It's been 80 years, Hakim, move on. I think it would have been more impactful if after some time he had fallen in love again and moved on, and Camille ended up, she's still in this same place, in this same body, with these same people, and Hakim had a whole family and a whole life without her. I think that would have been more impactful, personally.
Yeah, I could see that.
Cool.
Yeah.
For sure.
I have one complaint.
No, go for
it. So this happens a lot in fantasy. You'll see certain idioms or whatever that don't make sense. So while she's in the, talking to that little girl, there's a lot of did people just leave body parts there? Is that what happened? As a sacrifice for the altar? And there's a rat, and she calls it a plague rat. She said there's a plague rat there. So did they also have a plague? The same plague that we did? Why would you call it a plague rat? Yeah,
that's a fair point. I don't know. They do have they've got a blight of some kind.
Yeah, but specifically plagues. Rats with fleas carried the plague.
Yeah,
and that's why we called it that.
You would call it like a sump rat or something like that. Something.
Yeah,
why
sump rat
did they call it a plague
In fact,
rat?
I feel like they've mentioned several types of rats through the past two stories. I think one of them was not a pier rat, but something like that was mentioned in the Progress Day story. And I do think sump rat is actually a phrase that someone has used. But
That
I
makes
think that
sense.
would have made way more sense here.
Yeah, I think it was just an instance of like the real world language slipping through accidentally, but it stood out to me.
Yeah.
Like when
No,
people
that's
mention like hell in certain fantasy stories, and you're like, "Do you have hell here?" Like you haven't mentioned hell.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing to note because I didn't notice it when I read through it, but as you mention it, it's like, yeah, that's a, you know, that doesn't make sense exactly. I kind of wish, I guess, bouncing off of that, I do kind of wish the Glorious Evolved assemblage was a little less, so one-to-one with what you would associate like a general, like I guess I would just say, Christian church, right? I mean, she calls it a church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've got
Yeah.
I immediately
essentially
envisioned a Christian church when she started
got
talking
votives,
about it.
Mm-hmm.
stained glass, a rosary. The guy calls himself Brother Zachariah or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something a little more
An offering
unique.
table.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It doesn't make sense. I don't think Jesus exists in Runeterra.
I mean,
But the
they could
Grey
have,
Lady does.
Yeah, they could have all these trappings.
Influences. Yeah.
But it's just a little. It would be. Wouldn't it be cooler if it was just a little more unique, right? Just something
Yeah.
that was a
If
little
it
more
was in
itself.
a clock tower.
Sure, definitely. I don't know.
Sure.
So, I was going to cover the cinematics, AUs, and just the brief appearance she had in Eve's lore. Unless anyone else had other stuff.
I'm good.
I do wish, because you had mentioned her being morally gray, and I do think that's definitely something they're trying to do with her, which I like, and applaud for the attempts. I do wish. I don't mean that to say that they failed either. It's nice to see them tackling that than something that's just so one or the other.
Yeah.
I would like to see her do stuff that's a little, interact with people who are a little more morally gray, having her deal with, scheming, skeezy Kim Barons and Zonite thugs and betraying, brothers. Those are all pretty easy targets to, like, not feel bad about her killing, but having her, kill people or do things that are nefarious against maybe people who are more innocent, but just obstacles to clan pharaohs would help cement her as someone who's willing to do anything for the clan regardless of the morality of it, right?
Yeah, they kind of mention that it's a possibility that's something that she's doing, but we don't see it in detail. I'm curious if they're wanting to leave her open for kind of more of a redemption or leaning more towards good, because if you have like a graphic story of her like murdering an innocent teenager like they did avoid in the comic, you'd have a hard time justifying her taking a different side later. I don't know if Riot ever does that with their characters, like really pushes their story that far forward. We haven't really seen that yet, but
Yeah.
So, Camille does make a brief appearance in one of Evelyn's short stories called The Shadows Beckon. In this one, some rich dude hired Evelyn to assassinate someone and just wants to make sure that she's worth the money. So he's kind of going over like, hey, you're responsible for that murder in that area, right? And she's like, yeah, that was me. And he's like, hey, and you also did, you mentioned, or you killed that clan, like that guy in that Piltover clan, didn't you? And then she gets very irritated and was like, no, that was not me. That was the Grey Lady. And that's kind of all she's mentioned, but it brought some questions to me as to like, does Evelyn have kind of like a rivalry with Camille? Like, is she infringing in on her assassination business?
It would kind of seem
And
to be
how
the
good
case.
is Camille at staying in the shadows if Evelyn also knows who the people she murdered? It's like, oh yeah, that's a Grey Lady murder right there.
Classic Grey Lady murder.
Especially given that it's also established in the story that she does not spend a lot of time here in Piltover. It's not like she's a Piltover assassin. She goes all over the fucking place, and I think they specifically say it had been a while since she'd even been back here, and she still knows that was a Grey Lady kill.
well, I mean, she's got sword for legs. She's got a mark,
we saw this. We found this dude with no head, and the floor was just scuffed up, fucking everywhere.
She's not being sneaky. Because Do you think,
She needs those
do you
corks.
think Camille thinks she's being really like sneaky and not leaving any evidence behind, and there's just all these scratches and corks?
Oh,
Get
man.
corks for your
Yeah.
feet, Camille.
I love the cork idea now. Well, you're reading the trades, you're keeping up with the industry, you got to know what's happening.
No. So, the cinematics. She is featured in 2 of them, and then, once again, is a very passing and small reference in Giants. So, we'll start with Awaken, where she actually plays the most direct part that is actually lore-related. This story...
And we did talk about this a little bit.
A little bit, yeah, because it was mentioned in the Zed comics, so we talked about it when we went over Kali. But this cinematic takes place with Camille's essentially hunting down Jin. I don't know if we ever get the reason why. I'm sure there's some backstory there that I forgot to look up. But
I think...
Oh, Mark looks like he knows it.
I think I went back and looked at this at the comic, and I think they mentioned that there were weapons being shipped out to Ionia from a bunch of merchant clans, and those were all the ones that had been getting hit by Jin. And Pharaoh's was
okay.
the only one that hadn't closed up shop.
Nice.
So.
Okay, that makes sense. So Camille got sent to stop Jin, who was interfering with all of the weapon shipments that I'm sure they relied on for, their mass riches. So in the cinematic, we see them kind of busting down the door, and Jin is just kind of just playing piano, just doing his Jin thing.
Doing his Cohen thing.
Yeah, yes, very, very Cohen from BioShock. And Camille has showed up kind of with other troopers as well. And as they have their guns drawn, they're walking down the aisles of this theater where Jin is on the stage. They start triggering some of his lotus blossom traps that are scattered all over the theater. And this was the thing I mentioned before, which is kind of neat, where you see Camille's eyes change color from red to blue as, the people under her are being hit by the lotus blossoms, which are in-game magic damage.
Wait, aren't they physical? Are they magic or are they physical? I don't
I think
understand.
they're the one magic scaling thing he
AP
has.
Jin, let's run it!
Okay.
Yeah, I know they used to scale even harder, and I think AP Jin was a thing on like ARAM for a little while. But yeah, so she uses her awesome hip zip lines to go up to the ceiling. Jin shooting, and then she dives down on him, and the cinematic kind of ends in a freeze, like a very, very cool freeze frame, which you should make as your like desktop background if you haven't yet. But it ends on a freeze frame that definitely looks like Camille's for sure going to cut Jin's head off in about 2 seconds. We know that doesn't happen because Jin is still alive in the, when Akali's investigating the aftermath of this entire event in the Zed comic. Jin is still alive and watching her investigate, and we also see a trap door on the stage, which, upon looking at it, opens up and not down. So it's even more impressive that he somehow found a way to sneak out of that trap door before getting decapitated. But he found a way to make it work.
And she cut the piano in half. So
It was very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Must have still been a very, disappointing trip back to the clan. Like, no, I didn't get him.
Well, who's she gonna answer to? Who's gonna give her shit about that? She's her own boss, man.
That's true. Living the dream.
That's true, huh?
Make your own hours.
She's also in the she's in the You Really Got Me one that we mentioned from Blitzcrank. She's actually fighting Blitzcrank and Teemo in the cinematic, and is thwarted by the two of them. Blitzcrank goes ahead and throws her straight into a field of Teemo mushrooms. It does not end well for her. And the last thing is if you pause the giant cinematic pretty early on and watch on a very high resolution.
Oh man, another one of these.
You can see the clan Pharaoh sigil on one of the kind of skyscrapers in the background, and it does specifically say on it Pharaoh Security. So they have their own security firm in this Giants universe.
Interesting. Did you spot that with the Pharaoh's text or the sigil? Because those sigils are hard to spot out, I would think.
It was the text. I would not have recognized the sigil.
So it's like a bunch of squares.
Yeah, and I feel like I've seen like 3 or 4 different versions of it, which are all like roughly the same design, but not exactly the same design. Like a lot of artistic license with those sigils. Now, in terms of AU, she's part of 2 of them. She is part of the Project Program AU. In fact, she is kind of the binding person that connects the 2 universes together. So she was essentially kind of the first program that was corrupted by Program Lysandra in order to weaponize her so that she could quell the genetic rebellion. So she's a robotic assassin who essentially will just kill any human who's trying to use unauthorized technology. And she takes orders directly from Lysandra.
Oh, shit.
She wouldn't.
Well, she's a program, so she does. She's just code.
My Camille would never.
Not my Camille.
My Jaco jeans wearing Camille would never.
An interesting thing about this universe in particular is that it is heavily hinted that Camille is the one who murdered Senna in this universe.
Oh.
She has a quote to program Lucian in here that just said she was an easy target.
Oh.
Huh.
Harsh. Well, I love Senna, so now I really don't like
I
Camille.
like that Senna's dead in like multiple like not just one. Is she dead in High Noon too? No, right? Because she's got a
Right, they got a refrigerator, everything.
Yeah, she's alive. Well, actually, I don't know who's alive in High Noon since like the dead are kind of roaming the world.
Yeah, that's a
could
fair
all
point.
be dead for all I know. Dead and robots. So the other AU she's a part of is the Coven one. So just as a bit of background lore for this, long ago, an order of monastic knights slew the vile gods of the old world using esoteric powers granted by the moon and sun. Now the world has grown dark and violent as those selfsame deities prepare their return, challenged only by the light of the eclipse. So essentially, in this AU, Morgana was the queen of a coven that worshipped the old gods, and Kale betrayed the old gods, and it's never actually, I don't think it's specified whether Kale was part of the coven or not, but she was Morgana's sister here, so betrayed the old gods and her sister by slaying the primordial sun and giving its power to the Eclipse Knights. So now Morgana has returned to end the reign of mankind and return the world's true lords to their rightful thrones. Now, there are several members of the Coven, and Camille is one of them, and each of the old gods speaks to kind of a single member of the Coven. So the Coven Camille is spoken to by Ebony Ram, the old god Ebony Ram. And it said that they came to Camille as if in some dark slumber, whispers of the Ebony Ram and the nameless things tumbling up from long-forgotten sepulchres. Her throat full of hearsay, she cuts down the vestiges of the New World, seeding the earth with the magics and witchery of her ancient, grinning masters. So that's Coven.
I wonder if she'll get a Coven skin.
I think she has one.
Camille?
Yeah.
What? I literally never played Camille in my life,
gonna
so I
say,
don't
is
know
that-
what skin she has.
Is that not why we're talking about it right
She's
now?
got 2 skins, Coven and Program.
Oh, okay. Well, I know sometimes people are part of a lore and they don't necessarily have a skin in
I guess
that
that's
lore.
Yeah,
true,
especially
yeah.
if like they were on like PBE but never got released.
That's true. I didn't know any about that stuff about Coven. I think that's the first Coven one we've done.
I'm gonna take that excited squeal to mean she does have a Coven skin.
Oh, hi. Okay. It's so good. I never see this either. I don't play against Camille very often either, so
Yeah, we don't play her. She doesn't get played a bunch in the games that we play, I think.
No, none of us want to play Camille.
I played her a bit. She's fun.
Yeah. So the last thing, and we can all kind of all talk about this. This isn't a me specific thing, but her quotes.
Oh yeah.
If anyone looked at them,
I
she has holy fuck, so many quotes.
All the newer champions. I mean, she's still kind of old, but newer compared to a lot of others. So many quotes.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting stuff there. Some fun interactions that I liked.
The one that sticks out to me is the Vi quote, because it seems to hint that Camille has some knowledge about what happened to Vi's parents, if not a direct hand in their not being parents
intimate
anymore.
knowledge.
Yeah.
So the quote there for the record is, "Ever wonder how you became an orphan?" Which she says when she taunts Vi.
Yeah.
Oh.
I have an app that has the.
Ever wonder how you became an orphan?
Oh God, her voice is so sexy. Am I just attracted to Camille?
I feel like everything I've seen.
Is that the only reason I like her? She has two.
It's like looking into a crude, boorish mirror.
Oh, harsh.
Yeah, she is harsh.
I will say, if I just choose between Camille and Vi, come on.
And she had some interesting ones for Caitlyn. One was, I think the one we had talked about last week, which was, don't go looking for something you don't want to find.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there was another one, which I just found this week. And this is specifically, I think, when you're attacking Caitlyn, not when you taunt her.
Oh.
And it is, less hat, more pants.
Why? Camille, you left your Janko jeans at home. You don't even wear them.
But I know that you were talking about how frustrated you were that as someone running around the city, she was in that short skirt all the time.
Skirt, yeah.
Apparently it bothers Camille too.
Oh, Camille's wise.
Jeans for everybody.
Janko jeans for Caitlyn. I'm really hung up on Janko jeans.
Yeah.
I'm
The
really
denim
sorry. I don't know what
AU.
it is. I thought just because it would fit her blade legs and not cut them up.
That's true.
Yeah. Or those like goth pants at Hot Topic back in the early aughts.
Hell yeah. The other quotes I like, and I don't like them for any like particular lore type reasons. I just found them interesting. I liked her quote to Gangplank. It would have been better for you to stay dead. It was a nice nod to that lore event that we got so much shit about in player support.
Oh, I don't know that
I
story.
didn't know.
Oh, it's when they killed off Gangplank and then pretended like he was like dead, so they removed him from people's profiles.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Which we had a lot of conversations. Like the lore team was very like, no, this is important that it happens for the sake of the lore. It has to happen. And we were like, you have no idea how many tickets we're going to get about this. Nobody's going to like it. They're going to be super pissed off. And they're like, no. Trust us. We did talk them down because I think they were originally going to do it for a way longer period of time. And we talked them down to a shorter period of time. But yeah, lo and behold, we got a shit ton of tickets about it.
I don't think they would do something like that now. Could you imagine? Like, you're playing ranked and you're like a one trick and your fucking one champion is just gone from the game out of nowhere.
Was he still enabled in ranked? I do remember this happening, but I don't remember the fineries of it. I don't remember if maybe they still let him.
Either way, it's still a
ranked.
terrible idea.
I forget.
I like the gumption.
Anyway.
I don't
The
know.
arrogance that you think people care that much about the lore that you should remove a champion from the game.
Yeah, I just reading that quote just brought back such vivid memories of
The angry tickets you got.
the other one that I thought was fun was just towards Rise, and it just says, "Scissors beats paper." Also, she has one quote, and it's not towards anyone. It's just a general quote that she just says that says, "Purity of form, purity of function." Those legs cannot be purity of function. There are more functions than for killing. You gotta walk around with those, and that can't be the best way.
That's a fair point. There was one of hers. I can't remember what the exact details of it. I remember what it says, like it's like privilege must be preserved at all costs or something like that. I don't remember what the hell it is that she says.
Yeah, that it might have been exactly that, in fact.
Oh, she's so much less sexy now.
I wish I could remember what the hell.
I guess at least she acknowledges her privilege.
What the hell is it?
Low bar.
Low bar. I don't remember what it is. Oh yeah, it was exactly that. Hey.
Nice. Wow, that
that
really
was an
highlights like
interesting
who
thing.
she is and where she's from, huh?
Yeah.
My bad. I had a glass of wine. Hang on, just one. That's all it takes. I'm 30. 2. Do you have any? Oh, go ahead.
Does the sound of my mouse wheel scrolling show up on the audio?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to start at the top of this quotes page, and I'm going to mouse wheel scroll down.
All right.
John, I see how tiny the little scroll bar is.
Those were pretty big scrolls, too, for the record. But that's how long it took me to get through her quotes.
Yeah, that voice actor got a lot of work.
Yeah.
All right. Any other final thoughts on Camille? Because this has run a little bit long, which is fine.
Yes, I
We have
do.
a lot to talk about.
There was one idea that I had forgotten about, but I thought about her compared to Aphelios in terms of making sacrifices for a thing, and this was one of the things about Camille that I didn't quite like. Is there's a lot of idea of her sacrificing for her family. That's not to say that she hasn't, but it seems to me that a lot of what she's gotten has been very beneficial. You know, extended lifespan, cool legs, awesome eye vision, etc. And comparing to Aphelios, someone who, you know, when he sacrifices, it's just debilitating pain and potentially having to kill when he very clearly doesn't want to.
And I'm pretty sure he sleeps in like the woods.
And he sleeps in the woods, and he's kind of a hobo. So I think
pain so
I agree.
much.
Yeah.
Pain so severe, he can't speak.
Can't speak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
No, I'm with you. Mark. I had trouble with that because I'm like, first of all, I think they could have made a relationship work, her and Akeem. I know he was worried about like her losing her humanity, but he didn't stick around long enough to even find out. I don't think she did lose her humanity. She's still a human being in a lot of ways. So I don't know. Like, she didn't have to sacrifice that. Y'all, shut up.
It's because humanity comes from brain. We have actual humans
from
who
brain.
don't have hearts.
Yeah, I agree. So, but yeah, again, eternal life, there's not a lot I wouldn't sacrifice for eternal life. Are you fucking serious? That's not a sacrifice.
Especially in a case like hers. Because, like, I could see where some people like, oh, eternal life is so lonely. I can never die. But, like, she has that kind of eternal life where, like, at any point you're like, no, I'm done. You just pluck that shit out of your chest and you're good.
And she's constantly surrounded by family.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, that was one thing. I remember thinking
I'm
that
with
earlier.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's it. I don't want to harp on Camille too much because I have come out liking her after this conversation, I will say.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
I do find her interesting. I hope we get more, I guess. I would like to see her outside of just her family in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I mean, I don't know for sure, obviously, but it's likely we'll see some in the Arcane because it seems like she's got a deep connection to a lot of the main characters of that, so.
Hopefully. I mean, it seems like she would have been around. Also, one other thing, the thing I was going to say earlier, I think the reason we see some waffling between her being really dedicated to the clan and dedicated to like Piltover as a whole is I saw that one of the monikers she had in development was the left hand of Piltover, and I wonder if there was some of that development DNA still in some of this lore, where it seems like maybe the intention was to create a dark mirror of Caitlyn, where Caitlyn operates in the law and, you know, above board, and Camille kind of works towards a mostly shared goal of keeping Piltover, you know, running and smooth, but, you know, in her dark clandestine assassin-y ways. And I wonder if maybe that's why we see some of that. You know, sometimes it's just Clan Pharaohs and sometimes it's Piltover as this great machine, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that. It is. I'm so glad that we got Camille right after Caitlyn. I know that wasn't planned, but that worked out super well.
For sure.
You seeing the differences.
Also, she has another quote towards Caitlyn that was very like, the law protects, when it is protected.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was an
Did
interesting
Daddy
one.
buy you that gun? Damn, Camille.
Well, Daddy bought you those legs. Well, I don't know. Maybe she bought them herself. Who knows?
She's a self-made woman, badum-ching.
Not really.
That's one of her
Boyfriend did it.
other quotes. Is about something about self-made women. I don't remember the exact quote.
Yeah, there was a quote there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
It was,
that.
God, was it
I think it's just like there needs to be more.
Oriana or some shit
yeah,
like
Ori,
that?
Yeah.
Someone
yeah.
like that. She's like, we need more prominence of self-made women.
I'm looking at some of the quotes now. Her one to Ezreal is, "Shush now, leave the talking to the adults." Ouch. This is my ultimate ability. That was my Ezreal impression. Was it
I
good?
was gonna say, was the voice actor here?
Special guest.
Anyway, I think that's Camille. I think we're done. Thank you so much for listening. If you could leave a review or rate wherever you listen to your podcasts, if they allow you that option, that would be super helpful for us. And join us next week when we will be talking about The Serpent's Embrace, Cassiopeia. I was hoping we would all do that.